We just crashed. I don't know why. Our whole stream just crashed. Sorry about that, chat. We're back though.
Oh, we're back. Okay, cool.
Yeah, we're good. Everything's fine now. I tried to pull the chat from one screen to another so that way I can both read the chat and be looking at the screen here. But yeah. Anyway, okay. But we're back and things are better now. We got everything okay. Why don't we go ahead and start the podcast? How does that sound?
Sounds great. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So just a reminder, everybody, that we are not going to be interacting with the chat during the podcast, but keep posting as if we are going to be, because at the end of the podcast, we will go back and go over the things that you mentioned and talked about, and we will respond to them at that point. But the podcast itself, we like to syndicate again afterward as an actual podcast. So, yeah. With that being said, I think I have the pre-intro today.
Sure.
And I have how should video games handle age restrictions?
Oh, no, you've got the intro, so I'll do the pre-intro.
Okay, sounds good. So how should video games handle age restrictions? That sound good?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. In 3, 2.
Today on the Nerdy Gritty, how should video game companies and governments handle age restrictions in the industry?
One more world disappears inside it. Just another hopeless addict. What they makes a man instead. If the drums don't get you, the guitars will.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I am Dez, and I am intricately looking at the face of your children.
Uh-oh.
Sit with that for a while. Go ahead.
Please don't.
Just sit with that for a while.
I'm Fox, and just for logging into our podcast today, you get an in-game reward.
Yay! But not all of you. So, hey, welcome here. Hey, we're going to be talking about some really interesting stuff today, actually. But before we get to that, hey, Fox, when you go to the theater, do you have like a go-to snack?
Oh, popcorn. The classic.
Yeah, it's got to be popcorn, right? Everybody
Standard popcorn.
Well, what makes that popcorn even better is, of course, unique popcorn buckets.
Sure.
It makes it taste better. It's objectively true.
I do have a Taylor Swift popcorn bucket. We do.
There's like been a lot, right? There's a Taylor Swift one. There was the D&D one, but yeah. Most infamously,
they've made a big comeback. Yeah.
Most infamously, it was the Dune popcorn bucket, which was uncomfortable to say the least.
There's a whole SNL sketch about it.
Is there really? Oh
yes.
Boy.
You can go watch it for yourself if you want.
But recently, because you got to get in. That's the hot thing right now. Custom popcorn buckets for the movie.
Sure.
So Deadpool and Wolverine has announced that they will also have a custom popcorn bucket. Now, when this happened, a ton of AI mock-ups of people guessing what it could be came out. So there's one that looks like the Dune one, but it's the head of Deadpool and his mouth is the Dune one.
Classic.
Then there's another one here. Again, these are AI mock-ups of, it's a popcorn bucket with a lid, and it's Wolverine's face and Deadpool's face, but their mouth has a thing you can unscrew, so there's a hole. And so it's their head with a circular hole in the
vomiting
mouth,
popcorn.
and you can pour popcorn out of it, right? And so...
is that one the real one? That's what I'm looking at right now.
We don't know what the real one is yet. The real one has
more
not
will be
been
revealed.
announced.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the truth is that we don't actually know what it is yet, but people have been guessing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to estimate, just for a little bit here, what could the custom Deadpool and Wolverine popcorn bucket look like? And right off the bat, here's what I think it should be, right? It's a popcorn bucket that as you're eating out of it, it's refilling itself. What is most notable about these two characters is their regenerative
they can
powers,
both heal.
Right? And it's got to be like they have to replenish what is being taken from them. It just makes sense.
That one makes sense. It'd be a little difficult. I don't know how you would do that without some kind of long tube contraption that continually adds more popcorn. Which I'm for that one. That sounds great.
An absolutely huge long tube, yeah.
No, I think the ones that I'm looking at, they don't include the graphic violence of Deadpool. And that seems like a lost opportunity, a missed opportunity. I think I like the direction of having the thing that unscrews on the front. What I think is that it should be on the bottom, and the bucket should be their torso, and you just have like entrails. You know, they have
the other way around. It's their body, but you can unscrew their head and
Yes,
pour
tear
popcorn
it
out
off.
of it. Yes. And just let
Yeah.
and it's like
but
spicy,
it's very
spicy popcorn, so it's all red.
graphically violent. Yes, that one
No.
would be good. Also,
That's really good. I am surprised that it's not like Deadpool crouching and like it comes out of his butt, right? Like you
Mhm,
unscrew it and he poops the popcorn out. I feel like that one is one that could be childish
That's-
enough that they could get away with it, but also very, very Deadpool, right?
yeah, no, that works. The other direction you go is the whole point of their relationship is like the grumpy like Wolverine hates Deadpool, but Deadpool always, whatever. And so somehow you have like a Wolverine claw going through Deadpool's face or something.
Oh, that's
And
good.
there's like it's like dragged down. There's like gashes that the popcorn comes out of. Like it's violent, and it also shows that Wolverine just hates Deadpool.
So no, okay, here it is. It's Deadpool's whole head, right?
Yes.
And the top is a screw off, like a twist off lid, but it's got Wolverine's hand attached
Down
to it.
through it.
No, like this way attached to it, and so
Oh.
you spin his hand with the around Deadpool's head, and then it pops off the top. Right?
Just cutting off the. This is getting very complicated, but thematically correct.
I mean, no. Look, it's just a twist top, but they have
That's true.
Wolverine's fist against it, and that's
Good point.
and you just twist it off, and it looks like Wolverine slowly carving around his skull, and then you just pop off the top. That's the way. I mean, okay. Here's a side question. When Deadpool regenerates,
Mm-hmm.
how does his body decide where to regenerate from? Is it his brain?
Did you see Deadpool 2?
Yeah.
Because he regenerates the vast majority of his body in
Right.
that one.
So, but my
Yes.
question is, why doesn't he regenerate from the legs up?
It's a
Is it his
yeah,
brain?
because I would assume the brain is where it's the mutant gene. So maybe it's just wherever that gene, wherever. I don't know
if
how
you
it
this, but
works.
genes go all the way through your body. That's
That's what I'm saying. The
part of
genes go all the way. Genes go all the way down.
the genes go all the way down and all the way up. It's a really weird
And
pair
all the
of
way
jeans
up
that I'm wearing.
and
It's
out. full denim's back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, we're trying to be quick here because we're running a little bit late. So, do you have any more thoughts on what kind of a Deadpool and Wolverine popcorn bucket?
What kind? No, I have a thought
how?
on if you should buy these, and I say no. Don't waste your money.
Fox, this is true of any collectible item ever. You are just
No, the things that I collect are okay.
Oh, okay.
You forgot about that part.
Those make sense, but other things, that's dumb and you shouldn't buy it. It's pointless, but let me spend a lot of money on my cards with ink on them. My
Yeah,
paper.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. Let's move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, let's move on to what's real big right now. It's been in the gaming world news for a while. It's been a real lightning rod of criticism and whatever, all kinds of reactions. The game Stellar Blade.
Yeah. Yeah, it really has been, which is a little weird. That's fine. I understand.
It's weird.
fine.
It's like right at the center of the controversy we talked about last time.
Right.
Of the whole DEI woke games and how it's not woke because it has an attractive person as the main
Right.
character, which doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, so in the game, it's out now. There is there's screenshots coming up on Twitter of a section of a wall which has, okay, I'm just going to explain it. It's not very complicated to just explain. I know it's an audio medium, but it has, in a graffiti style, it has the word hard right next to a neon sign for a store with an arrow pointing somewhere. It's a shop sign. It's neon, and it's called the R Shop. Just the big letter R and then shop underneath.
So it
So
says
on-
hard R.
Hard R Shop with an arrow pointing. Yep.
I'm guessing this has got to be a translation issue, right? This cannot be important or on purpose.
There obviously, yes, it's already been stated. Let's see. Sony told IGN in a statement, the placement of two graphics near each other in Stellar Blade resulted in an unintentional, objectionable phrase. Shift Up, the developer of the game, had no intention of creating offensive artwork and will be replacing the graffiti for the day one patch.
For those of you who don't know, a racial slur is used casually amongst that folk, but when mostly used as a racial slur, there is a hard R at the end of it.
Yes,
like instead of just saying you really get the R in there. And that's really what emphasizes the fact that it's a slur. And so the phrase hard R refers to that.
So Shift Up, the developer of the game, is Korean. So this is clearly just like a localization translation issue. It's not like which does really actually give us a good example of why having somebody like Sweet Baby Inc. do a little pass through, be able to point these things out.
Man, it is just
so fun, so ironic. I love it.
Honestly and truly, it just shows how threatened some people feel by the most trivial things. And
right.
Yeah, it's Hey, on a different note and a more interesting one, I feel honestly, Take-Two wins a lawsuit over LeBron James's tattoos.
The tattoos were suing.
Right,
Take-Two.
No, actually, it was a tattoo artist. His name being Dale Kendali. Oh no, that's the Take-Two. Where's the name of the tattoo artist? I want to make sure that he gets. There's so many names in here. Either way, the whole idea is that the LeBron James's tattoo.
Jimmy Hayden.
Jimmy Hayden, thank you. Jimmy Hayden is LeBron James's tattoo artist, and he custom created art to put onto LeBron James. Now they're taking LeBron James, and the developer said they are intricately recreating those tattoos on his arms and putting them in the game.
Right.
What Jimmy is saying is, you are intricately recreating my art and putting it into your video game. I should be compensated for that. And he lost.
Yeah.
He lost that. And here's my honest opinion on this is, I kind of think he's right.
I can understand it's, custom artwork, but at the end of the day, the real question is, who has the rights to that artwork when the tattoo is applied?
So here's what I'm thinking, right? So let's say it's somebody's house, a famous person's house, and you're intricately recreating what the interior of this house looks like, and they have purchased a painting from an artist, and you are now putting the painting on the wall. I think on average people would agree that artist should be compensated for his art being in that video game. It's his painting on the wall being recreated and then sold for a profit.
That's true. No, I'd agree with that. It's depicting, that is what happens in games, I assume. But what I think the difference here is that does the fact that this artwork became a literal part of this person. It's not just a piece of artwork you can take up and put down. Obviously, you can remove a tattoo with time and effort, and you can do that. It's not just a thing you can do at will. So does that change the nature of the artwork now? It seems to me that it would no longer just be a piece of art. It's part of that human being. And that human being, the likeness of the human being is, I would assume, what Take-Two is licensing out or whatever for their game. So
I would agree with that if it weren't the reality that you could just put whatever canned tattoos on his arm. Whatever.
It's true. I don't think anybody would really care.
Right. I mean, some people would notice.
As long as, yeah.
But then you'd say, hey, it's somebody's art and we didn't want to reproduce it. And so we just.
Well, as long as LeBron, you just, whatever LeBron James. What's interesting is that this is now just going to change, like, when a celebrity or an athlete goes in to get a tattoo, you put this in you have to sign a contract now.
Oh, man, that's true. Man, it's crazy. And then the whole idea of law and precedence, like the fact that this will set a precedent in video games. And so having this whole thing of like, now you can copy a lot of things on people. Like, what if somebody at this point is known for wearing a specific t-shirt? Like, you want to recreate it one for one. Do you need to pay the artist on the t-shirt or the t-shirt company or whatever else? Like, it's just, this begins to set a precedent that I personally, again, I genuinely think that tattoos are an art form that, especially when somebody is custom creating a tattoo rather than just copying something that, or a piece that somebody brought in, when it's something that they invented from scratch and put onto somebody else, I think that's art. And I think that
I can understand that. I think the real turning point, the real hinge point is you're not licensing the artwork, you're licensing the likeness of the person. That likeness of the person does include that artwork. And so like, how does that affect what is being,
the chat brought up the same thing. Like, this is now the likeness of this person.
Right. It's something part of their biology, essentially part of their actual physical nature.
I could see it. I mean, we don't have time to debate about all of this, but I would then say I think likeness is more important of the face more than anything else, like the head of this human being. But
right.
Yeah. But anyway, okay. We don't have time for all of this because we need to get down to the nerdy gritty. Fox, are you prepared to get down to the nerdy gritty?
I have been preparing all my life.
So within the past few months, let's go back a while, some interesting decisions have been made going into the idea of children playing video games. The reality of the matter is there has been a problem with intentionally manipulating youth to either continually play your game or to spend money on your game, or both. And this has shown up in a lot of different ways, from Skinner box mechanics to like Fortnite got really hit hard for this, for like a lot of different things. But overall, different organizations and companies have been trying in different ways to reduce this, to the point that back in December of last year, China announced a wide range of like legal changes on video games. Saying that games are banned from giving players rewards if they log in every day, if they spend on the game for the first time, or like whenever they spend money getting bonuses, as well as there's man, I'm having to rebrowse the article here, but essentially there's some more strictness for people under 18 as well. Like, if you are under 18, there's a certain amount of time that you can spend, and etc. Like, really trying to hit down on the manipulation and psychological addictiveness of video games, specifically regarding youths. Then on top of this, back in looks like beginning of this month, a little bit last month, the ERSB, that's the Electronic Software Ratings Board. This is an independent organization that gives the ratings to United States video games.
Yeah, and you'll see it on every box. It is they
proposed to the FTC an AI-generated tool that can measure the age of somebody, interpret the age of somebody's face.
A privacy protective facial age estimation system.
Yeah, age estimation. That's a good way to put that. Literally, it's in the title.
Yeah, it's what it's actually being called. Yeah.
And the idea is that if parents choose to, they can set this up so that their kids cannot play M-rated video games, and it will scan their face.
And stop a child from just saying, yeah, I'm 18 or 17 or whatever when I bought that M-rated game.
So it was shut down pretty quickly within the FTC, but it was not completely shut down. And if they gather more information, get some more proof, get some more backing, they can resubmit to the FTC later to try this again. So here's what we want to talk about today. We're both parents. We both are video gamers. And so how do we feel about this regulation of video games for children? How do we feel about how strict it can get and whatnot in general? So off the bat, let's begin this with a really, really broad subject.
Sure.
Fox, what do you think about kids in gaming and the addictiveness and the reality of the struggles within video gaming?
Oh, I mean, it's a scientifically proven fact that you can be you can be addicted to a lot of stuff, but
Right.
video games are something that can be addictive to some people. There's, in fact, I was just looking at this actually. Currently, about 20 high-profile lawsuits against various video game companies regarding video game addiction.
Mm,
Like this is not just like, you know, a government's deciding things. This is also coming from the ground up, people suing video game companies for using addictive, you know, incentives to get people to continue playing, including children. And so, I mean, it's just a simple thing. Anything can be addictive if it's hitting the right kind of fulfillment in your life, or certain, you know, whatever, you know, I'm not a psychologist, whatever kind of need that it can fulfill, it can be addictive. And video games are not a exception to that. So I think it does make sense to have some protective safety, you know, guardrails for children, younger, I mean, really for anybody, but for children who have not fully developed, you know, skills in when it comes to self-regulation and, you know, being able to recognize when something is an issue or not. That's true for people who are not children also, but, you know.
Even just in a formulative time of life, if
Yes.
you are playing a game, you know, there are kids now today who've been playing Fortnite for years as they've also been growing up, and being able to have part of their formulation be rewards that you get every day if you can continue to do this thing, that just becomes almost a part of who they are. Like, we see this in reality of the nurture versus nature thing, of things that can be taught to people, and it can become a compulsion for a lot of people.
Sure.
So
yeah, and it's also a case of, like, you and I started playing video games at a way earlier date when they weren't even connected to the internet. That wasn't a thing. You bought a game, you put it in your system, you played it. And so when we see things like loot boxes, whether or not we approve of them, it's not something we grew up with, so it's something new. Whereas somebody who started playing video games 5 years ago, has never played video games during a time when there wasn't these standard practices. The fact that there's a Game Pass in single-player games is not shocking to people who have only been playing games for a couple of years. But for us, or older gamers, they're going to be like, what is the point of this? Why would I even want this? I'm just playing a game, you know, that kind of thing, or stuff like that. So, and it just becomes, we this is true for a lot of stuff. The things that are normalized at a young age for us become the normal for the rest of our life. Things after that become the weird. And so that's just true for every generation. You have a different normal and what's acceptable in video games. And so that's going to increase the ability for somebody to become maybe addicted or just accepting of these predatory practices when it's just standard practice in the industry. That's just that's a video game. Well, I mean, you know, most of the gaming is done on their phone, and every phone game has the ability to spend money, and, you know, things like that. Like, it's just standard.
Look at cigarettes, right? That's kind of the obvious point at it. One of, they spent a really long time specifically advertising to children. So even to the point when we started putting this, hey, this thing can kill you, smacked right on the box, it still was making a lot of money. People, it
didn't really have an effect.
Yeah. And it took them eventually beginning to tax cigarettes and, like, to do a lot of things on the back end and then a lot of, like, really large movements telling people to stop smoking, to finally begin to reduce smoking in a really big way. Yeah, decades of work on this, because there was also years and years of work to establish this within a culture as something that is normative and good and, you know, whatever else, and cool. And so the same thing can happen to video games. I understand that it's not addictive in the same way, but
it's not physically detrimental to your health.
Right. But it is still something that you can feel compelled to do, that your brain can create a cyclical dependence on. And it's absolutely something that I think should be monitored and regulated in some way.
I think so too. Ultimately, the, like, pie in the sky. The right answer, quote unquote, is, well, parents should just pay attention to this and stop their kids from doing it. But I think you and I can both also agree that's nearly impossible to us to a certain degree. That video games are not. When I was younger, had an N64, had a PS2. It was extremely easy for my mom to say, you can't play video games anymore, by taking my PlayStation 2 and putting on a shelf that I couldn't reach. It's just that simple. Okay, video games are, unless I went to somebody else's house, which I could do, but the people at that age was able to go, their houses, my mom knew their parents and could easily just say, hey, if I was grounded from games, I was probably grounded from going to other people's houses too. So anyway, that is not the same. That is not the same today. There are parental controls and all, but there's so much more technology. There's so many more screens and tablets and all these things that, yes, the easy answer is, well, why do we need government intervention? Parents should just do this. No, I don't think it's really plausible to say parents can 100% stop this from happening. There's always some other method for a child to play a video game if they really want to.
Well, and we live in an era where helicopter parenting is probably like the worst it's been in history. Like parents can monitor their kids more than they ever been able to in the past. But, excuse me, this stuff still happens. Like we still have struggles. We still have problems. Right. And when we say parents more than ever in history are monitoring the content of their children, but their children are still being duped and tricked or whatever else, that doesn't mean, okay, then parents need to be more strict or parents need to learn more. That means that, okay, this is a culture that our entire, planet has set of some of the stuff's going to go unseen. That's just kind of life. Is we can't absolutely ask a parent to monitor every single bit of a child's life. You're going to give more anxiety disorders to children. It's just not going to work out that way.
I think there's also an argument that could be made that, well, what, government, the anti-government regulation kind of argument. But this would be an exception to 1,000 things that are regulated by the government that most people would just simply agree with. You wear a seatbelt. People had problems with the seatbelt when it first was introduced as law, legally required. People got upset about that. The government's getting into my life. Nowadays, we're just like, yeah, you wear a seatbelt because it's
wear your seatbelt.
It not because necessarily the government tells you, because it is a safer thing to do. But nobody's decrying the fact that you have to stop at a red light. That's a safety regulation that helps people, save lives. And so you would have to make the case as to why this would be an exception to government regulation and not literally every other government regulation that exists. And of course, you're going to get people who will say, yeah, none. But
right.
That's impossible and doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Everybody would cry foul if that's a whole thing.
Well, and we already regulate plenty of things when it comes to kids. Like specifically when it comes to kids,
right?
And what age they can go places, and what age they can buy things, and what age they can drive, and what age they can rent a car, and what age of all kinds of different things are regulated, sometimes by companies, but mostly by the government. Like these things are regulated because we understand that there are ages in which it is not healthy for you to experience fill in the blank. Like we get that. You shouldn't be consuming alcohol freely, we think, until around 21 years old.
In America.
Right.
In the United States.
Yeah. And we have these mindsets. You shouldn't be, allowed to get behind the wheel of a car and drive on your own until you're 16 years old. We understand that there's an amount of trust that we're giving a certain age, and we need to make sure that we're regulating this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how this is wildly different.
No, I think this makes a lot of sense. It's not simply because it's not a moral judgment on video games. It's a ethical judgment on the addictive qualities of them. Also, do want to make a quick distinction. When we say regulation, I would say that that's like a government intervention. if it's a company doing something, that's just company policy.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you are
Policy
not compelled to
regulation,
play any particular game. If you don't like what Fortnite does on their own, then don't play Fortnite.
Yeah.
Government regulation is probably going, would be a throughout the industry. So it'd just be, if you want to play a game, you have to play it by these rules.
So to play devil's advocate for a second here, when it comes to alcohol, we can say, did they or did they not purchase alcohol? If it comes to a car, we can say, did they or did they not get behind the wheel of that car and drive it? There is an absolute 100% yes, no. Where do we draw that line with a video game company having addictive practices or compulsive practices or whatnot? Like, I feel like, what is a Skinner box? Well, it's, compelling somebody to come back every single day for a certain amount of rewards. Okay, can we do it every week then? It's not every day. Now it's every week. Okay, well, you can't have them coming back for rewards. Are you saying we can't give rewards at all then? Because we can give rewards. Fine, you can't give them daily rewards or
Sure.
Fine, you get daily quests, and those quests give you rewards.
Right. I mean, that's just, the quest is you took 3 steps in game.
Right. And so there's just so many ways to create a gray area here. How would you suggest we think about that or deal with that?
I mean, when we talk about, obviously we are not psychologists. We're not,
No.
When we talk about addiction with other things, when I think of like something like an intervention, the whole point of an intervention is that people have seen a problem and are addressing it with, here's how it affected me, here's how it's affecting your life. Other things have been to the detriment of because of this, other things are being detrimentally affected, things like that. That is not the same as how do we decide, how many in-game rewards you get or the schedule of them. But I would say that would be it would take a lot of study, a lot of scientific study to understand the impact of people's game playing habits upon their lives. And how often do they play? How much do they play? What kind of games do they play? What rewards and incentives do those games give? And how do those impact their lives? In a big way. So that was really, you would have to see, like, if we consider this group of people to be addicted, why?
Yeah.
What are the games they're playing, and why? In what ways are those games incentivizing them to play? Because even like, it's going to be a subjective thing, because there are objective measurements like how much money are you spending, but somebody who spends $500 in one day on insert game Hearthstone might just be very wealthy.
Timely reference, Hearthstone.
It's still a thing. It's just the game that came to mind. Might just be very wealthy, and that's not a big deal for them. But somebody else might be severely in debt, and they got paid and are spending everything they have. And so the problem with how you figure this out is, how intrusive are you going to be into figuring out whether or not somebody is genuinely affected by, as in an addictive way, or if it's just their circumstances allow them to do that and it's not actually detrimental to them.
So let's go into some of the specifics then. Let's jump into each of these situations that either proposed or actually passed in the country. So being able to now make sure I got the full of the information here. China has said that there are now spending limits for online games. So each individual player will have a spending limit. So even if you have multiple accounts, each account will have its spending limit, and therefore you can't upgrade any specific characters or whatever. Like, there's a spending limit.
Well, it helps in China that they probably know exactly who you are and have all the information on your accounts and everything before they even get into this.
Then they also said that there can be no more daily rewards. No rewards for the first time they spend money in the game. All various other incentive mechanisms. And then specifically for youth, you cannot have lottery-based benefits.
Skinner box type stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lottery-based benefits on anything for minors, which, because there's no way for a video game company to guarantee the age of their players, they basically just said, we're just not going to do it then. Like,
Sure.
we can't take that chance.
Yeah.
And so this is something that has reduced Tencent, who it's a Chinese company who does a lot of the game.
One of the largest companies in the world.
Right. Their stock lost 14.2% on the day, and then there is a estimation of up to 26% loss on within their stock. And hey, that's a lot of money.
Yep. Just on
So-
speculation that this is a company that uses these, owns games that uses these incentives, and so
I mean,
you're probably going to lose money.
use is probably a understatement. I'd rely, I would even say, like.
Oh
games
yes,
that
it's their
rely-
a lot of games model. I mean, there's a lot of like gacha games. That is what they do. That is the point of them, is to make money, and they rely on these, Skinner box and reward type mechanics
like
to make that money.
to give an equivalent. It'd be like saying the Madden games can't use NFL anymore. You can still play football. You can still play the game. It just has nothing to do with the National
It just
Football
has
League.
made up names.
Right, and it's like, no, that's why we play the game. That's why
Yeah,
we
that's a
actually
huge
care.
incentive.
That's it. That's the thing. So, yeah, and it was a huge hit. So when
That
you
is, or at least that's what makes EA the money.
yes,
Is having that branding. And if they can't use the branding, then what's the point of the game?
right. So then, do you think that this is a wise thing? Is it too far? Is it not enough?
Okay, talking from a personal standpoint, perfectly fine by me. I do not. I have never, aside from like Google reward money for taking surveys, I have never put money into a game aside from purchasing that game. None of these microtransaction type things. So personally, it doesn't affect me. Sure, go ahead, that's fine. On looking at on a larger way outside myself, I think it's fine. I'm perfectly fine with it still. Ultimately, I hope it just forces games to be better.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, really what it would do is probably just give them motivation to find other ways to make the money that also could be underhanded, but it's always going to be a game of whack-a-mole.
That's forever. That's a capitalist
Right.
mindset. But although China isn't, yeah. But anyway, so the whole mindset here though is that I really think this is a wise first step. This is something to put in, see how successful it is or is not, and then adjust as needed.
Yeah.
Because to me, this does not stop a company from making a video game.
Nope. Or profiting off of a video game.
Because at the end of the day, I would much rather pay $10 for Marvel Snap and never be asked to give, daily rewards or, weekly deals, or never get an ad in the game again, even if it's for the game itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And same thing, like I would be happy to buy my kids Fortnite and never have to let them, because for a lot of these ones, they're free games, which means there's no revenue to be made off of them.
Free to play.
Right. So the way that they make revenue is off of these microtransactions and whatnot. I am 100% just fine with saying, no, charge for your game, but you can't do these microtransactions and these loot boxes and things anymore. And it's not at that point forbidding a company from making a game or making money off of it. It's forbidding a practice that is measurably and provably harmful to people.
Yeah, we should also state that, I mean, I guess from a personal standpoint, the way I'm thinking about this is what if the United States use these same methods? We are not trying to, endorse or whatever the Chinese government.
Fox specifically is. He and Xi Jinping best to go way back.
Well, I call him Old Winnie.
Yeah,
and he loves it.
Fox is the only person that Xi Jinping
the only
loves to hear him.
If you actually go look at his speeches, he says, "Hey, stop it." only Fox gets
Except
to
for
do
Kyle Fox. He's fine.
He's cool. No, yeah. So theoretically, if the United States were to implement these kinds of methods, I think I wish they would. Honestly, I think it is detrimental to the gaming industry as a whole. We have several examples of games recently that I can't say that they're bad because of these methods. I mean, the big one that's coming to mind is Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, but it definitely doesn't make the game better.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if that game came out and it was, the gameplay wise was the same exact thing, playing the game was the same exact experience, but it did not rely on like a Game Pass type thing, the reviews would have been much better.
Yeah.
People would have been disappointed, like, oh, this wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But if it's not trying to continually get your money after also making you buy it, or not making you, but it's asking you to purchase it, it would have been a better result. Like, I think people would be more okay with, would just say, oh, it was a mediocre game. That's fine. Those happen. I still enjoyed playing it. But because it then also tried to get you to, like, a mediocre game that tried to get you to spend a bunch of money on it after you bought it, it's like, oh, okay, now it's a worse game. Now I don't want to, that's why games get review bombed for this exact reason. I don't approve of review bombing. I don't think it makes sense as a practice. But I can understand that that's something that is going to make you not like the game even more. And so if we were to implement these kinds of remove these kinds of incentives, I do think it would be helpful to the game industry as a whole and put more power into the hands of developers rather than the actual game developers, the people making the game, rather than the people trying to squeeze as much money as they can out of them. Sometimes those people are the same people. I get that. But if we remove this mindset of everything has to make as much money as possible and try to get to a place where we are making a piece of art and we want to make it very good so that it sells well, because the revenue we make comes purely from the sales of the game, then hopefully we can get better games out of it.
So I don't even know if this is devil's advocate in it, but at least something to consider. Well, all this is true. I mean, I obviously agree with you on all of this. We do have to remember that video games as a profitable medium are not very profitable because they have purposefully resisted inflation. Video games in 1980 were about $50 a piece.
Yes.
I just looked it up. $50 in 1980 to today is about $200.
Yeah.
If we kept with inflation, it would be about $200 per game, meaning that inflation still happened for everybody else, right? Inflation still happened for the companies.
Right.
So for them to make a profit, they should be charging that much per game, but they don't. It's the most about $80 a game these days. And
yeah.
And so the way that they have said, like, this is kind of public knowledge. This is kind of public knowledge within video games, or the open secret, maybe I should say, within video games. And so the way that they make money is by back-ending their profits with microtransactions and DLCs and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So what about this issue of making video games either prohibitively expensive or you got to have microtransactions in there? Like, video game companies rely on what are called whales, people who are willing to spend thousands of dollars on this game, which then makes it profitable for them, for everybody. But if you take that away, video games are going to, inevitably, they're going to start bumping up the prices so they can make money. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a solution there?
I think there's more to it than that. I think the increasing demand for technology to, graphical fidelity and all these things have increased the cost of games, like games development, which is contributing to a need of a higher profit. Like, there's more than just the inflation angle, but so that could be changed. We could not demand these kinds of things, small games that aren't the top of the line, cutting edge technology are still very good, and still make lots of money without having to. It's the same with like movies. A movie that costs $10 million to make and brings in 50 million made a 400% profit, whereas a movie that cost 200 million and made 400 million only made a 200% or 100% profit. And so like just we should lower our expectations and recognize that this is a industry that if we continue these demands, it's just going to collapse on itself.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I also think it is a luxury. And so we have the ability to say, oh, that game was too much for me. I can't afford it. Guess I'm not going to play it. I guess I'll play Hades 2. It's way cheaper, like I'll just play these other smaller games. This game came out, it was $15. Even with inflation, it's now a fourth of the cost of one of these bigger games. I'll play that instead. Oh, this was really good. Maybe I don't need it to look like a one-for-one recreation of a human being, and this pixel art is also fine. Like, I just think there's something to be said for the audience's expectations that could contribute to the problem. That is to say, also, the actual pricing power is in the hands of the industry.
Right.
Like, we can have all these expectations and even change things, but there's the industry, the publisher and whatnot are the ones who have the ability to change how they fund games and how they're priced. So that's the true power right here. Like, the true power is the one who can just change it immediately. But there is a give and take on both sides. Like, we can say, I'm not going to play your game because it's too expensive, or you rely on these other methods to make money, and I don't like that, so I'm not going to play it. A lot of it's just a FOMO. Like, we just don't give in. Just don't play whatever the new thing is. Wait till it's cheaper.
Well, and I also think that video game companies need to manage their expectations on what we expect.
Mm-hmm.
If Baldur's Gate 3 came out and it was the first 2 acts, and then it had some sort of satisfying conclusion at the end of that act, and then I had to pay another $70 for Act 3 and a little bit more, I would do that. It was really, really good, guys. Like,
yeah, we said the same thing about Days Gone.
Days Gone.
We played through that. It was super long, but if you cut it in half, it would have been a better game.
It would have been a better game, and we would have paid twice as much for it.
Potentially paid for a sequel. Like, right.
And so I think that so many games are thinking to themselves, particularly the AAA ones, we need to deliver a 50, 60, 100-hour experience that is just this overwhelmingly, huge masterpiece for the players. And look, that's great, man. But Elden Ring could have been 3 games. And that would have been real cool.
It could have. That can also backfire. I think that's a problem to me with the Final Fantasy VII Remake project. My problems with, like, at least Remake, the one I've played, that could have been much shorter. That could have been a 10-hour game and been way better. And you could have made a 30-hour game out of just one single remake and been better. It is a case-by-case basis.
Right.
There is no like, every game has to be this, because there are some giant open world game like Infinite Wealth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth came out this year, and it's going to be on the top 10 lists of every. Very looking forward to playing it whenever I can afford it. But also, so will Balatro. Like, there is a spectrum of what people like playing, and it's okay to create these big, massive games, but ultimately you do have to expect that when you are asking people to spend a certain amount of money, you might be turning off some people who think it's too much. And it's just, it's not an easily solvable problem. What is easily solvable is incentivizing children to gamble as a result of the amount of money you're spending on your game.
Yeah,
that is a moral issue, I would say, versus a simple pricing issue.
You can still have microtransactions and DLCs without manipulating people into purchasing these things. And your whales will still spend that money. They love your game. That's why whales spend money on games, is because they love your game and they're going to play the crap out of it and they want to be the best at it. They're going to spend all their money on it. It's like, you didn't hook somebody who spends $10,000, every other month on your game because of a Skinner box. You hooked them because they love your game and they want to keep playing it. And so I think that it's okay for games to have DLCs and microtransactions, cosmetic microtransactions. Just don't be manipulative about it. Be clear
Right.
and obvious and not incentivizing with it. Just let it be a thing. So
I think Marvel Snap does that pretty well.
yeah, I agree.
Marvel Snap is one of the less, manipulative with how they do things. There's not a huge incentive. You won't massively be overpowered if you give them more money. So I think that a lot of people can take a cue from that.
So, I mean, exactly that, right? As an example of a game that does monetization well, Marvel Snap is a great example because their biggest thing is, hey, for $10 each month, you can get this one spotlight card 1 month before everybody else, but then next month it's available to everybody else. Marvel Snap does a good job of balancing their cards, so it's not like that one card is going to adjust the meta insanely to where now you are you're just going to win all the time. And then after that, it's all cosmetic stuff. You get one card a month earlier, then it's 100% cosmetic stuff that you get for your $10 a month.
Yeah.
And then they offer you, if you choose to go to their shop, then they offer you all of these things that you could also purchase if you want. But nowhere in the main screen is it, here's the sale, here's the whatever, here's the this, here's the that. I think Marvel Snap does monetization really, really well.
And guess what? They made $88 million last year, which is $49 million more than the second place.
Yeah, they doubled the second place. As far as phone TCGs go.
Yeah, phone mobile card games revenue.
They outsold the second place by double, and they're in
yes.
the league. Yeah, and
take that, Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we got to get on to the second part here so we definitely think it should be regulated. We think China's got a good idea going here. What about this facial recognition software for age restrictions?
Yeah, there's still too many problems with AI. This is not a time just the simple fact that a lot of AI has a technological bias is a problem, where it recognizes certain skin colors in certain ways or doesn't recognize them in certain ways, and it just creates an imbalance. It is not objective, right, as you would think an AI should be.
Well, what we have to remember about AI is that it's learning from us. And so it's going to be us a lot. And in that way, it does very often. It's like AI, just to put it blatantly, it's kind of racist. It is, right? And that's just the reality of it, not to mock or whatever else.
Well, if you're scouring the internet for information to then synthesize new information, you're going to get what you scour. It's not coming up with, it doesn't have its own knowledge database it created. So that's going to be a problem there. I think that's like a nope, right, and that's a no from me right off the bat.
Man, I love the idea. Let me rephrase that. I love the intention. I really do love the intention of something that when your child sits down, they cannot purchase or play an M-rated game, but when you sit down, you can, and that's not a problem. It's just, but at that point, I don't think it's too difficult of a parent to password protect their Steam account and log out when they leave. And then when their kid comes, they log into their Steam account, which is, age restricted. Like there are things there that actually protect these things already.
Sure.
It can get better. It can definitely get better, but I don't think that this is the correct answer.
Well, yeah, this is essentially the problem that they're trying to solve here is when you walk into a GameStop, if that GameStop employee is doing their job, they are asking for an ID if you're trying to buy an M-rated game. There's nobody on the PlayStation store aside from a screen, you put in your birthday. That's like the only thing that's going to stop you, and it doesn't know if you put in the right one or not. So the question is how does one enforce the age restriction on a digital storefront like Steam or any system, any kind of digital storefront? And I mean, this, unless you I don't know enough to say what the better option is, but this makes sense to me. Like facial recognition, potentially. I would have less of a problem with it. Well, I do. Oh, the problem let's see. if it's a purely opt-in thing.
Yeah.
If it is a purely like, because what you are essentially having to do is upload a selfie in order to decide like this system has a picture of you, and then alongside it the other information you give into the system, so it makes it easier to identify you, which is a problem. It could be seen as intrusive. If it is purely opt-in, if you buy a PlayStation 5 and on load up, you turn it on for the first time, it says, do you want to use this technology? And then you say no. Okay, well, that's, then you're signing a waiver, basically. Then you are saying, so then if there's some, problem down the line, this kid was found to be using this, then you said no, you didn't want to use it. Now we're enforcing this, whatever. Like, if it's purely opt-in.
Yes, I guess purely opt-in. My only struggle with that right now is AI is already known for taking information and then reusing it, whether or not we really intended it to. And because the whole point of AI is that it thinks for itself, and so it's going to start doing things without our intention, right? It's just going to happen sometime,
potentially at some point.
And so at the end of the day, I think AI would have to be a lot more controlled before I would trust something like this. Like,
right.
Yeah, I would just hate for later on somebody to say, AI generates a 13-year-old girl and my daughter's face pops up on that.
Yeah, like I was just thinking that, like, we used AI to do, there's talk about using in game development AI to do kind of the tedium, NPCs walking down the street.
Yeah.
Well, we have this AI is using this big dump of images of children, and we want to put children NPCs in our new Spider-Man game. Hey, you might have just swung past your own child, like, which on a certain one hand would be kind of cool,
awesome,
but
actually.
mostly if you are not given, if you did not consent to that, that's a real issue right there.
And that's just the crazy thing, and that's what's wild with AI, like that report on Midjourney recently where it was just this massive list of artists' names that it had been fed, and is basically aping their art, and just
right.
So it's really tough. AI is just still in too early of a place for me to trust something like this. If eventually you tell me we've got this thing locked down, it's going to look at a face, it's not going to take that image anywhere, we know for a fact that it's 100% protected, then I'd be a little more open to the idea. But
which is pretty much impossible to guarantee unless it does not require the internet.
Right.
Unless it's a purely like on in your system, a closed circuit kind of thing, which could happen, I assume, but
what
doesn't seem likely.
What I could see happening is the camera, like the intention would be the camera gets the picture of your face, reduces it to a pinpointed skeleton, basically the mocap dots of your face, and then it sends that to the internet AI. That somewhere in the middle there, it undoes your skin color, your hairstyle, like all the real defining features.
I mean, the point of it is to determine your age, so it probably needs some of those data points, like
your
the
hairstyle.
Yeah, I would say
color, really?
Based on just this image here, there's skin color is involved in here. The things that on your face are used to determine if it's just your bones. I don't know.
Not your literal skeleton, your video game skeleton.
I understand if it's just your your mesh or whatever. Your I don't know how you would determine age from an AI generated virtual
That's why I'm saying
mesh
the future,
person.
Fox. The future can be whatever we want it to be.
Oh, okay. Well, then in the future, this works perfectly fine, and there's no problems. So why do we need something else?
Yes.
Why are you coming up with this whole mesh?
Fixed. We did it. High five. Good work, everybody. We did it.
Oh, man.
Okay. Hey, let us know what your thoughts are on regulating, like age regulating stuff for video games. Let us know what you think about China's restrictions compared to what the FTC is rejecting from the ERSB, and about our thoughts, whatever. Let us know your thoughts. We really want to know that. But with that being said, hey, Fox, what have you been up to, my friend?
Watched a movie called American Fiction recently. I don't know if you seen this. The general plot. general plot is black author, is facing financial issues. His mom has medical bills, things like that. He also hasn't had a hit book in a while, and he's getting frustrated with authors who are gaining popularity for putting out books that talk about the black experience, but only in a what he would deem exploitative, like stereotypical way about black poverty and black, trauma and things like that. And so the movie is about him essentially as a joke, I guess, or as like a satire, as to point out the the ridiculousness of it. Just pumping out one of those kinds of books. Just a book about the deep, people in the hood, those kinds of things, and all that, where it's just the most exploitative, stereotypical stuff, and it gets bought, and he makes a bunch of money. Like, right. And so the plot of the movie is that happening, and then him basically having to maintain like his anonymity because he continues to pretend to be this made up author.
Right.
At the same time, the other plot is him dealing with his family. And it's a really interesting. It was a good movie. I'd say my biggest problem with it was very clearly, from watching it, an adaptation of a novel. In that, when you are writing a novel, you can have a lot more plot lines and a lot more going on, and it can feel a lot more natural. As you read through all of it, you get more details. You have a literal narrator that can tell you stuff. So you can just accept that all this information coming in, these other plot lines, they all connect better. In a movie, you have a much more limited time and limited amount of information you can get across without being overwhelming, or a number of storylines without feeling like it's just getting lost or muddled. And I feel as though it did do pretty well. But it still was pretty obvious when something was not, like, there was an entire plot line. I'm not going to spoil anything. It felt like there was an entire plot line that happened simply for, at the end of like the fourth scene of it, for the main character and his brother to have a conversation that helps him. Like that is actually like beneficial to the plot of the movie and this character. So it felt like a whole lot of time was dedicated to stuff that wasn't really important to the movie, but was ultimately important to the character. And it just felt like, okay, cut this out, or like do it in a way that more of it has more impact on it, on the plot.
Mm-hmm.
The actual like story itself was really cool, like, because itself also was a little ambiguous, I'd say, with the ending. And it did approach the argument of like these kinds of stories being told from a few different perspectives. I'd say I wasn't always on the side of the main character, which is, I think, a good thing. Good thing a lot of times, where, okay, now I understand he's being ridiculous here, or his argument is pretentious, and he's simply, a lot of times it comes down to, well, that doesn't reflect my experience, so why should we? And you're like, okay, but yours isn't the only experience. Just like, so it did a really good job of not making like this guy's argument the only one that was depicted as the right one. But I do feel like it could have been streamlined a little bit, tightened up plot line wise. So it was all right.
It reminds me a little bit of what we both read this book. Was it How to Talk About Race?
Yes. Yeah. How to Talk About Race.
And there was just a chapter in there about how, like, don't think that all people of color's experience is the same. Like, there's just like her talking about like, her and her group of friends.
So you want to talk about?
So you
race.
want to talk about race? Yeah. And there's a whole chapter in there that just talks about like her and her friends hung out, and they would go and do stuff, whatever. And then she talked to another a person of color about this, and the response was, "That's some bougie black folk."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh man, like, okay, there it is. Like, we have totally different experiences."
There's no culture is a monolith.
Yeah. I, on a completely different note, watched Wish, the Disney film that finally came out on Disney Plus.
Interesting.
And I have to say, it's pretty good. I don't know what
Okay.
people were expecting. It is not a smash hit. It is not Frozen, which changed the culture of animated films for a long time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It is not something like that. But you know what it's better than? Uh, Sleeping Beauty,
Citizen Kane.
and Citizen Kane. Easy, no. What's the one with the mermaid? Dang it! Dang it! I can't remember the name of the movie.
Oh yeah, Shape of Water.
Yeah. You're remembering it, and you're keeping
The Little
it from me.
Mermaid.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I said mermaid. I can't. It's better than the
It's
Little
in the
Mermaid.
title.
Yes, it's right there. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. It's better than so many other Disney movies that are considered classics, right?
Ye-
But I don't know why the hate came down on it. It is unremarkable. It's a 7.5 out of 10 for me, pretty easy. The music is great. It's catchy. A lot of hate has come down on the villain song because they want it to be a really classic villain song, and it's not. It's kind of upbeat, but they're missing the fact that it's actually this commentary on the villain doesn't think he's the villain. He thinks he's the hero. And so it's an upbeat hero song. And so anyway, but there's just this, I don't know what people wanted from it is what it is. Maybe it was the fact that it was Disney's 100th anniversary movie. And so there's clearly some like homage in there. There's there's a guy named Peter who wishes he could fly. And later on he meets a girl named Wendy and things like that.
Sure,
Like
classic.
just tons of references and things like that in there. And so it's definitely self-referencing a lot, but overall it's fine. Again, it's not great, but it's fine. I don't know why people were hating on it so much. It's worth watching. It is. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, you didn't really sell it to me, but sure.
If you're not a Disney fan, I don't think you need to see it by any means. Again,
Sure.
but it's not as bad as so many people are saying it is by any means. Here's this. I will say this. I genuinely think it's better than Poor Things. It is a better film than Poor Things.
All right. I mean, those are pretty different
And I
categories,
will
but sure.
fight on that hill. I will.
I don't know how many people are trying to compare those two. I played through a game called Call of the Sea,
Yeah.
which is a narrative puzzle game. Real simple, it's like I platinumed it and it was like 5 hours. So the plot of the game is it's set in the 1930s, 20s, something like that. You play as Nora Everhart is her name, I think. That's her first name. I think that's her last name. She received a mysterious letter, not inviting her, but incentivizing her to go to this mysterious island in the Pacific. Her husband was one of those classic, like, dashing adventurer, treasure hunter types. And she was part of that, but for the last 6 years has had some kind of illness that has precluded her from really leaving the house and doing much. And so now she's out on this adventure looking for her husband. This was the island that apparently her husband was supposed to have gone to, but he's been missing. She hasn't seen him. And so the game is you going through this island section, area, different areas, looking for your husband, solving the mysteries of, or learning about the mysteries of these people that were here, and learning about this illness you have. That's all I'll say about it. There's, it's pretty easy to spoil if you get in too much into it. It was fine. It was a fun little enjoyable couple-hour game. There were some plot things I didn't understand. The illness is important to the plot in a big way. You never learn why she had it, what happened that she had it. Again, I'm being vague, and it might not really come off as but it feels like they kind of left out some information that maybe I just didn't see at some point or whatever, didn't hear. But it looks very pretty. The puzzles are mostly pretty easy. And then there's a few that are a little more difficult, but difficult in the sense of, like, I just felt smarter when I've completed them. I never had a moment where I felt like this game was too difficult. I don't think the point of the game was to be difficult. It wasn't a hardcore puzzler. It was a lighthearted adventure with some puzzles. and this simple short tale that they wanted to tell. And so I would recommend playing it if you're looking for something easy, something simple. It's a really good like PlayStation Plus, catalog game. Because it's one that if I had to pay for it on its own, I probably never would have. But because it was, it's probably in Game Pass too. I wouldn't be surprised. But because it was in the game, I had access to it. I decided to try it out, and I don't regret it. I'm glad I did. So I recommend playing it if that's your thing. It's a good streamable game, I think.
We
too.
may do it on stream. We're done with Chance of Sonar, which I'm about to talk
about.
So.
I would recommend it.
I played a couple of games. First one is Balatro, also known as Balatro. I found out Balatro is the actual way to pronounce it, but Balatro was the original game that this is based on.
Oh.
The developer of the game says you can pronounce it however you want. Doesn't matter.
Whatever. Just give me. Just you bought the game. You can say it however you want.
Here's what I will say. It is a very good poker roguelike with a ton of replayability for a while. It's in early access right now, but I did it. I did it a lot. I beat it a lot. And that was like 3 weeks ago. I'm pretty good now. I'm okay. And I've heard that from some other people as well. Is like it will hook the crap out of you for a couple of weeks. And then maybe you'll revisit it every little once in a while. It's in early access unless they do something to bring it back in. I actually don't foresee it on any Game of the Years, anything like that. I think it will be known as mention it, bring it up. This is real fun. This is real good. It's really unique, but it plays out pretty quickly. It really does.
Okay.
But the one I really want to talk about is Chance of Sonar. Chance of Sonar is a game that is a puzzle game in as much as you are trying to translate languages. So you walk into an area and you see a person on the other side of a fence and there's a lever near you. And he points at the lever and a speech bubble pops up with just glyphs in it. And you walk over and you pull the lever and it opens the gate. And you can then click on his speech bubble and it will open up a journal, and you can click one of the glyphs and you can guess that it means open. And you can click on the other one and guess that it means door. And then as you talk to other people and that glyph comes up, it will give you your assumed translation of these words.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually at a few points, it will stop and give you 5 pictures. One of a door, one of a lever going upward, and you need to match the glyph with the picture. And then when you successfully match all the proper ones, it will definitively translate these for you. It is the most consistently I felt that balance of puzzle of it's not so easy that you're like, whatever, this is easy, but it's not so hard that you feel like an idiot. So every single time you solve it, you feel like a genius. This, more than any other game I've played, is the most consistently giving me that feeling. I felt like it more with other games, but then I've also felt like an idiot with those games. You know what I mean? Or, whatever else. This one consistently delivers this brilliant balance of you having to take context clues into play, having to look at pictures, having to have conversations, having to do all of these things to try and deduce these languages. And on top of this, it's actually telling a story of what is most likely the Tower of Babel. They don't say it outright, but when you're on the bottom floor, there are these people who are wanting to get to the top of the tower because they believe God is up there. They want to get to the top so they can see God, but there is another class of people called the warriors who are blocking them out and say, you cannot ascend. And so you learn the first people's language, and you're able to sneak into the second level where the warriors live, and you're able to learn their language. And then you start to deduce, like, hold on, there's some misinformation here. You get to the third level and you translate a third language. And then you even get to go back and start translating the warriors and the devotees' language to each other. And now they can actually start having conversations with each other. And the world starts changing because of the conversations that they're having.
Wow.
And it is so cool. What I said this last stream is this game is an outstanding metaphor for the state of the church. We are all in places that we want to ascend and experience God, to be closer to God. But we have created these factions and these divisions among us because of different opinions or different beliefs, to the extent that we're almost speaking entirely different languages of what it means to reach God. But if we started to try and understand one another a little more, if we started to try and have conversations and to see the truth about one another's beliefs and what's actually going on, we're going to find out that we're all going to be able to ascend a lot more easily. And the game tells this story really, really well. Like, if it came out that the developer was a Christian and that's exactly what they're saying, I would be like, yep, that makes sense. Yep.
Sure.
So yeah,
Cool.
It's a great game. I can't recommend it enough.
Another game I've been playing is Dave the Diver.
Yeah.
Just a one of everybody's favorites from last year, but they put it on the PlayStation Plus catalog. The thing that I keep that I've thought describes it well for me is, do you ever play any of those like flash games where, I don't remember any specific names, but you'd have a cannon and you'd shoot out your bird or whatever it is, and you go through, you got to collect money as you go and hit the things, and then you come back. Basically just that loop of then you upgrade and got to get farther, and
right.
A lot of flash games had this.
It's a numbers go up game.
What's that?
It's watch the numbers go up game.
Essentially, yeah. It's not the same as that. It's not about the numbers going up, but it just has that gameplay loop of just diving underwater, getting more stuff, coming back up. It's just the humor of it and the visuals of it remind me of some of those old flash games.
Yeah.
What it is a simple loop of, you go underwater, you dive, you catch fish, you do all kinds of story related stuff. Then you come back, and at night you manage a sushi shop, and you, with the fish you catch, you sell sushi to people, and it's kind of a little bit like Overcooked, where you have to get people their orders and fill up their drinks and stuff like that. It's kind of a more of a hectic Twitch reaction game at that point, and it just has this great loop, very satisfying. There's this management sim, there's the action where you go underwater, there's narrative of this underwater sea people that you start to meet and start to, the thing is, the game continually throws more stuff at you in a very, very good way. It's just shocking how many times I've been oh, there's another mechanic. Okay. Oh yeah, cool. Let's do this one. Or they'll just be little one-offs where there's a character in the game who, you can call for upgrades on a certain thing, and they're very much, an anime weeb, super into it. One of the quests is he was supposed to get an anime figurine that, a giant octopus attacked the shipment boat, though, and so you dive underwater and find it and bring it to him. There's this weird one-off scene where he has a dream of being at a concert for a K-pop group that he loves. And you know how in K-pop concerts they have the glow sticks and they do the motions and stuff. It's as far as I can tell, you can play it as a mini game later on your phone, but there's one mandatory rhythm game where you are controlling the glow sticks in this K-pop concert, and then it's done and it's over and you move on. You don't do it again, and it's so much fun because it just takes you out of that loop for a second, gives you this fun little thing to do, and then throws you right back in, and it feels like it breaks up the monotony that could exist.
I love that.
And that has happened in various ways 4 or 5 times. And so it's a very impressive amount of stuff they have put in this game that doesn't feel like a huge amount of stuff. It just feels yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Adding this. Yeah, let's do this. I can take that on. Yeah, let's add this into the mix. Cool. So it's a very well-crafted game. Well delivered to the player.
Last thing I want to talk about is I watched the entire first season of Fallout. I say first season because I would be shocked if it doesn't.
Oh, it's already been picked up for a second.
Okay,
already
good.
has been.
Yeah. I will talk spoiler free about it. What I will say though is it is doing much no, that's not true. Unlike The Last of Us, it's doing a great job of being very true and honoring the video game while creating entirely new content for it.
Yeah.
It is an incredibly Fallout world. It is unmistakably, truly Fallout. The characters in it, the goals of it, the naivety of the vault dwellers, the just absolute carelessness of life for a lot of the surface dwellers. All of this stuff is right in there. The dark comedy split with some genuine, dramatic moments, all done so well. I'm even like the thing that I didn't like about it was one character was super obnoxious to both me and my wife. But as you watch, you realize he's supposed to be like he's meant to be this way, and you feel toward him the way you're supposed to feel toward him. And it just does this really, really great job of making these characters feel real in a very Fallout feeling world. And it is outstanding. It's really outstanding. It's like Last of Us is becoming popular even far outside of the video game community. It's just a good show. It really, really is.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching more of it.
That's all I got.
Same.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. We're so happy to have each and every one of you here. Thank you for your thoughts. If you were in chat today, a reminder that we stream this every time. And so the chat will come in and be putting in their thoughts, and then we talk to them afterward about those thoughts. We want to say a big thank you to Granger for the use of our theme song, All My Friends Have Wi-Fi, and so do most of my neighbors, off the album Dear Sam. Thanks, Granger.
Hey, I just want to let you know that this podcast is not simply a time for us to talk about video games and whatnot, although it is that. It is also an arm of Save Point Ministries, which exists to bring people together in a in-person community, specifically the church, for people who have had bad experiences or don't know what the church is, things like that. And so I thank you for being here, but we also fully believe that there is a place for you in an actual in-person community. And if you don't have that, we would love to try to get you connected to one through SavePoint. So I'd recommend heading to SavePoint Ministries and SavePointMinistries.com and checking us out a little bit more. But thank you for being here regardless.
One more time, thank you so much for being here. And always remember that save games, save lives.
My voice sings all night, and this is what my heart sounds like. It's what my heart sounds like. It's what my heart sounds.
And we're back. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for being patient over there, chat. We got some stuff to talk about because there's some good thoughts in there. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll back here and see kind of things people are talking about here. We've got Farrago Fox saying, oh, yeah, the giant D20 popcorn bucket. Man, they're like selling online now. That's it's crazy. Again, collectible things, right? Collectors. Oh, the painting makes sense, but that's external. A tattoo can't detract from a person licensing their likeness. I'd argue that unless there is some contract dictating otherwise, a person always owns their likeness. I could see that. Just your tattoos becoming part of your likeness, and therefore, if you have signed away your likeness, then you are for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, not a fan of the age estimation tool for sure. Intentional curation of content for addictiveness. I hate it and take steps against it in my house, but I find myself susceptible to it in mobile games, for example. And susceptible to it is why it's made, right? If people weren't susceptible to it, they wouldn't do it. I personally am not. It really annoys me. I've deleted games because it got too much, but I totally get it. Wonder how long things like the freemium model of battle passes would fare under a proposed anti-addictive practices legislation. I hope not, right? Like, I hope that it doesn't, stuff like that, unless they find a way to do it without manipulation, right? Unless they find a way to do it normally. Let's see. Oh, exactly why I play a bunch of indie games. I'll drop money on a AAA game, but that's exceedingly rare. I much prefer the smaller stuff. Yeah, indie games, it's easier for them to make money. They spend a lot less money on it. It feels like you're playing something much more personally made, I find a lot of times. And it's usually cheaper and not as manipulative. So I love indie games. I love indie games. Adding the ability to pin protect select software on a given device would be handy. I think Steam lets you do that. Someone who's played the initial offering, it's good to hear. Oh, played since the initial offering. Fallout. Yeah, Fallout's good, man. I have 2 deleted games for over monetization. Yeah, it's crazy. It gets rough. Well, chat, Fox had to head out to wake up his son from his nap, and I got to head out to pick up my kids from school. One more time, thank you for being here. If you want to continue this conversation, be a part of what we're doing here, you can head over to our Discord. Not only do we just have daily conversations and chatting and hanging out, but on top of this, there's a channel on the server called Find a Church. And in that, you put in your city and state, and then we delete it and start talking to you about what kind of church you're looking for. And then we look for a church in your area that you would feel comfortable and that you'd fit into, and that you can have a good Christ-like but also nerdy community to be surrounded with. That is what we are shooting for here in the Nerdy Gritty or with Save Point Ministries. So we'd love for you to be a part of that. Thanks again for being here, guys. And always remember that save games, save lives. We'll see you later. Bye.